people coming in possibly. So if you got empty seats next to you, you might slide one way or the other so more people can get a seat as they come in here in the next couple minutes. Right? So again, if there's empty seats in the middle, slide in so that you can get in from the outside, stuff like that. All right, I want to, before we introduce our wheels people today, I want to announce that the week after spring break, our science seminar will be on Friday night rather than Thursday morning. It's going to be on Friday night because it's a really big, important speaker who will be here. Roger Weens, or Wines, how to say his name? Weens. Okay, will be here to talk about the Mars Curiosity rover, in which he was a big part of designing the mass spectrometry hub. Yes? So all you chemists who work on your EC mass spec, think about sending that thing to Mars, right? You can come out for that. So because we expect a big audience for that, we'll have that in the education building. Open up the wall, right? It'll start at 7 o'clock in the evening. There will also be some time in the afternoon where you can visit with Roger to talk about, Mars and stuff like that. Okay? And also things.
And radiometric dating, too.
And radioactive dating. So, yeah, that's what students come to the Maternal 4, hot dates. Okay. So, move on to better things. We'll talk about wheels is a big deal around here. Everybody loves wheels, as you can see. Everybody came out for wheels. And we're hoping that you'll enjoy the talk today about wheels. My first impression of these was that they were torture chambers for infant children, but I've been told that's not correct. They're not devices to squeeze little babies in or anything like that. So just my own morbid, bad imagination that makes me see those things. So they'll introduce themselves to us afterwards. I hope some of them can join us for lunch. How many can join us for lunch? Good number of you? All right. And if you want to talk more to them about their experience on wheels, I would encourage you to join us for lunch. We should be in the Joyce room there in the corner cafe. So come on out to lunch and hear the background story of all the stuff that was going on there. All right. So with that, let's welcome our wheel students.
We're the Latino University Wheels Project, and no, we are not the senior design team. We're the weird people who keep putting the cones in the hallways and threatening to run you over with chairs. So, we are
Karen Rispin, faculty advisor.
I'm John DiFrancesco, I'm a junior bio major.
I'm Jason Salez, senior computer science major.
I'm Bridey Davis, sophomore kinesiology major.
Ethan McMichael, freshman chemistry.
Joel Lowe, freshman biology major.
I'm Kathryn Baker, I'm a freshman biomedical engineering major. I'm Natalie Dottle, I am also a freshman biomedical engineering major.
And I'm Elizabeth Foster, I am also a biology major. But as you can see, we're not all biology majors. This is a very much interdisciplinary team. We've had electricals, mechanicals, and everyone else on it in the past. We also go all the way from seniors to freshmen, so anyone can join. This is not juniors only bio majors or anything like that. So you get research even if you're not on a senior design team. So what are we doing? The purpose of our project is to provide comparative feedback to manufacturers who are trying to make wheelchairs for low resource areas. They're designing the chairs and we're giving feedback on what works and what doesn't, which is very helpful information for them. So to be able to do this, we need to work with organizations that are designing these chairs. We have several organizations we work with directly that are designing chairs. They have the whole infrastructure, they have all the manufacturing, they have all the engineers. And then we have to have specific chairs. This year we're working with 4 chairs specifically, 2 chairs by Motivation, a chair by Hope Haven, and the Rock the World chair. These chairs are designed specifically for low resource areas. So we work a lot with in Kenya. Some of them were designed for Guatemala and different other places, but they're not necessarily built in the areas they're designed for. So what we're doing is we're giving feedback. Do these actually work in the areas they want them to? And to do that, we need protocols. Protocols are they're measurement scales in essence. They allow us to look at a chair and rate it on different areas and different aspects of the chair. So you have protocols that look at mobility, user satisfaction, the durability of the chair and the durability of the different parts of the chair, and then the user interface, which is how that chair interacts with that particular person. Because these are all important aspects if you're going to ship a chair overseas. So why are we doing this? This is Ibrahim and his mother. He is 15 years old, or was when this picture was taken. He goes to school, and he actually has a wheelchair. He's very smart. When he's at school, he has his chair, he has his mobility. Unfortunately, the chair that he has been provided with isn't able to be folded up, which means when he leaves school in the evening and goes home, he can't take it with him. His chair has to stay at school, which means whenever he's not there, his mother has to carry him. Which, if most of you remember being 15 years old, that's not something that you would want to have to deal with every day. And that's why we're doing this, is because it's not just important to have a chair. He has one, which is great, but his chair doesn't work for him. And you need a chair that works for the people and in the places where it's going. And that's the whole point of our project, is to find out what works. So what are we going to actually talk about today? That's probably what you want to know. We're going to look at some of our questionnaires and the protocols that we use. We have 5 different protocols we'll discuss today, and they each look at different aspects of the chair or different aspects of how it interacts with the user. And then we're going to tell you a little bit about the chairs we have up here. The Bumblebee, the Motivation Active Folding, the Motivation Rough Terrain, and the Rock Willow Chair. Then at the end, we will have time for questions. So I'm going to start by handing it off to Ethan and John.
So the first questionnaire is called the WCQC, the Wheelchair Questionnaire for Condition. And this is important in rural areas because in the U.S., the average lifespan of a wheelchair is about 3 to 5 years. And that's assuming you have repairs about every 6 months at a shop or something. But there's 2 problems in a rural environment. First, generally you don't have repair shops or availability of spare parts. And second, the wheelchairs are in a much rougher environment, so they tend to wear down a lot quicker and cause problems. So this not only affects mobility, but it's also dangerous for the wheelchair users because something as simple as having a flat cushion or a broken back plate can cause a lot of back problems and issues for the user. So the goal of the WCQC is to provide feedback to the manufacturers on what parts are wearing down quickest in specific environments. And this is because the distributing companies are nonprofit companies and they have an affordability versus quality tension. So they need to know which parts are wearing down, and they need to get help with decisions for what quality or what design changes need to happen and what replacement parts need to be shipped with the chairs. So yeah, the WCQC helps with that. The questionnaire itself is made up of 8 questions. They're asking about specific parts of the chair rather than the overall chair quality. You're asking the foot plates, how is that? And it's a tool for clinicians to use when looking at a wheelchair. This is what the questionnaire looks like. The first part is an A to F scale. It's A to F rather than a 1 to 10 or a percenter scale, just because it's more intuitive. If you were to ask, rate your chair or grade your chair, it's much easier to grade your chair just because it's more ingrained in your mind. And the more important section is the comments, because that's where you find out what's actually wrong with the chair. Because say you got an F on the cushion of the chair. It could be it's a terrible design, or it could be that the pad was just missing and there's nothing there. So the comments are where you find out what's actually wrong with the chair. And John will talk about the reliability of this test.
Yeah, so in 2015, we did a reliability test on test reliability of the WCQC, and then this past summer, in 2016, I was part of a study that looked at inter-rater reliability of the WCQC. So a little bit about that study. We had study protocols approved by our university and by our partner organization in Kenya, and the power calculations that we calculated indicated that we needed 35 wheelchairs to be evaluated in order to have statistical power for the study. So we had 2 wheelchair experts two therapists that came with us, and they both had at least 5 years of experience in low resource settings with wheelchairs. And so they both rated the same group of wheelchairs, individually rated the same set of wheelchairs. And so wheelchairs were selected based on convenience. So we were at a school, and so we selected wheelchairs based on classes and tried to kind of bring all of one class wheelchairs at the same time so that it would minimize the disruption to their learning environment. And then a little bit about the statistics. So we wanted an ICC value, that's an interclass correlation coefficient. So we wanted an ICC value of above 0.7 for the overall questionnaire, and then for the individual questions we wanted above 0.6, and that would indicate good reliability. So these are the results that we got. We got an ICC value of 0.82, which was above the 0.7 that we needed, and then for the individual questions, you can see the ICC values are there, and all of those are above 0.6 as well. So that indicated good preliminary reliability there as well. Several limitations and things that we want to look at in the future with this study. We'd be interested in doing a study with larger number of raters, and also raters of different experiential backgrounds. So not just raters necessarily from North America or something like that, but a broader range of experiences. And then we'd also be interested in looking at the amount of time that it takes for the rater to fill out the questionnaire to evaluate the wheelchair. And several things that we found out throughout the course of this. The WCQC is very specific to certain locations. So based on the repair systems and the quality of repair services in certain environments, wheelchairs tend to have greater durability in those areas. So that was something that we looked at, and it's also allowed us to interact with manufacturers and implement design changes and look at test standards, and also be able to influence those as well. And then just a little bit about my experience with wheels. So I've been on the wheels team for the last 4 semesters, and I've had the opportunity to go to Africa. I went last summer, and I spent 3 weeks at Joytown School, so that's where we do the field studies. And then I was also able to spend a week at a mission hospital. I shadowed an orthopedic surgery team, and I was able to get some experience in the operating room there, and also in a clinic, looking at post-op and pre-op visits from patients. And so that was a really cool opportunity. I also was able to go to Nashville last week, and we presented some of our research there as well. So if you guys are interested, please come and talk to me, talk to any of these guys. Now Jason's going to talk to you a little bit about the WCQU.
Thank you, John. So the WCQU is the wheelchair components questionnaire for the user. So imagine your mom buys you a shirt, or gets you a shirt, and then the company that made the shirt asks you, or asks your mom, how is the shirt? She says, oh, it's great, it looks nice, and it's durable. But you hate the shirt because it's really uncomfortable, and it's too hot, and it's not comfortable, right? So this is what was happening with the wheelchairs. Companies are giving these wheelchairs out, and then they're asking clinicians or technicians, how are the wheelchairs, how do they hold up? You know, how are the parts of the wheelchairs? But no one ever asked the people how they like the chair. So as you can imagine, there's people who aren't satisfied with parts of the chair, and no one knows about it. So we helped develop this questionnaire to ask the people, what do you think about this part of the chair? What do you think about the back of your chair? What do you think about the wheels? How are they meeting your needs? And so this really helps us see the user's point of view from the chair about various parts of the chair versus just the clinician or the technician's thought of the chair. To use this, we had to take, like the WCQC, a reliability test. And that was done in Kenya last summer with 60 wheelchair users. And they took the test, or the questionnaire twice, 1 week apart from each other. And that is to see, does the question bring the same answer every time? Like, is it a good enough question that you're going to get the same results every time, or is it just based on how they're feeling at that moment? And so by doing this, we found out that the questionnaire was successful. Even our lowest 2 questions were still within the range, 0.6 to 0.7 per question, and the questionnaire as a whole was above the 0.7. So as a whole, we realized that the questionnaire does meet the standards, it is reliable, it's going to provide reliable feedback. So there was some challenges to making this. You need questions that are precise enough to get data that is useful. Like, are we knowing parts about the chair that is really going to help the companies know what to fix? Also, it needs to be wide enough that we can cover very many different chairs. I mean, we've got 4 just here, and there are hundreds, but many other chairs out there that need to be covered, as well as different users, different abilities of the user, etc. We also need it to be reliable, that the question will be answered by the same person every time. By making this questionnaire, we are able to see what the individuals think about their chair, get their feedback on parts, so that the manufacturers can address issues that the user notices that maybe others don't. Like the back of the chair might be really uncomfortable or really hurting them, even though it's durable and good quality. Now the company can see, okay, we can work on that, we can fix that, and keep our quality. And so everyone, including the user, can actually be happy. And it's also very versatile. Like I said, we can meet the needs of many chairs, manufacturers, and users. So that is the WCQU. Next we'll hear from Bridey.
All right, so we've talked a lot about assessing the components of the chairs and especially assessing for durability. But another aspect you need to look at when you're looking at wheelchairs is the wheelchair user interface. So I'm going to talk to you about the wheelchair user interface for therapist questionnaire. And I know that these acronyms are probably going to be a bit of a mouthful. You can call this one the WOOT if you want to. We're tossing around that idea. Let me know if it's a good one. But what is the WUIT? It is a questionnaire that's designed to look at how a particular wheelchair works for a particular user. So it assesses the quality of life of that user, but not just compared to anyone's quality of life, compared to the maximum for that person with their diagnosis. So that helps to eliminate some of the variables that are created by differing diagnoses, differing ages of wheelchair users. This is a questionnaire that's designed to be completed by a trained therapist, and it's supposed to be completed just by looking at the wheelchair and having some basic knowledge of the user. It doesn't involve an interview. So that enables it to be quick. However, it's mainly for use in large-scale studies. So it's not a full clinical assessment. If anything, it could indicate the need for a full clinical assessment, but it's really for use to look at a large group of wheelchairs at a time. And it produces continuous quantitative data as well as the qualitative data. Similar to the other questionnaires you've seen, this is the type of scale that we're using. But as you can see, the question is very different. It asks for how the wheelchair, in this particular question, facilitates desk and table activities. So that's something that's more along the lines of wheelchair user interface, not about mobility or about durability, but how that chair is working for the needs of that person. So why is this questionnaire different from other measures that are out there? This is a brand new questionnaire that's in development right now, and it's different because it's not focused on mobility or on the components of the chair. It's very specific to the interaction between the wheelchair and its user. It's also really versatile. It can be used for any chair and any person. And that makes it helpful because it's specific to wheelchair user interface. It's a quick questionnaire. We'll see how long it takes once we have this fully developed, but it should be a 20-minute questionnaire since there's only about 11 questions right now. And it's usable, once again, for virtually all manual chairs and virtually all users. So as I mentioned briefly, it's in development right now. It's a brand new tool. This is something that didn't exist before Ms. Rispin realized the need for a questionnaire like this and started working on developing it. So right now I'm part of the process of developing this outcome measure, and that involves testing for validity. That simply means, does this questionnaire measure what we say it measures? Does it actually do that? And that involves face validity, something that we have to do right off the bat, and involves a lot of initial feedback from therapists and clinicians, getting their ideas on these questions and on the questionnaire as a whole. And then a more formalized process called a Delphi method, in which we send out this questionnaire and a survey and ask the therapist to rate each question, rate the overall questionnaire, and help us to get the best possible questions that we can. So that's kind of how that works. It's several rounds working with OTs, PTs, people like that. And that's been a really cool process. I'm at the very beginning of that process right now for me, because I want to go into occupational therapy, so I get to interact with therapists, with people who are doing what I want to do, and I get to work on something that I would actually use in my field. This is a tool that is talking about helping people with activities of daily life, so I would use that, and it's just been a really cool experience to see that come together. Once we have this questionnaire tested for validity, we have to do the same kind of reliability tests that John and Jason have been talking about. We'll do parallel reliability by looking at other questionnaires that are out there and seeing how well our scores will match up with them. We'll do test-retest, which Jason was talking about earlier. And the eventual goal for all of this is to publish this questionnaire and publish our studies because we want to make this tool available to therapists all over the world. This isn't something that we just want to do for our own project. This isn't something that's a one-semester thing. We want to make this tool able for anyone to use. And so we'll publish our description of the study and show that it's a valid questionnaire, and hopefully it can make a real difference in this field. So now I'm going to hand it off to Lizzie to talk about WIU.
So Bridey was just telling you about the wheelchair user interface for therapists questionnaire. This is a wheelchair user interface for users, which is a very similar questionnaire. It's still in the very, very early stages of development, so all the wonderful testing that they've been talking about, this still has to go through all of it, which is kind of a prayer request because I get to help walk this one through some of it. It's built off of the questionnaire for therapists, but it's designed to be filled out by the user instead. So kind of like Jason was saying, that you wouldn't necessarily be happy if your mom buys a shirt just because she doesn't like it doesn't mean you do. This is the same concept, looking at the interface of the chair and the user. The questions are worded to be very easy to understand. We want any wheelchair user to be able to fill this out, so you don't want to have to sit and explain to a 7-year-old what all the technical terms mean. So we tried to take all of that wording out and make it easy, also easy to translate. And then the questions are supposed to be very personal, because this is this specific person and this specific chair. So we don't want, do you think someone else will like your shirt, but do you like your shirt? And then it addresses some concerns that the therapist might not realize. Like, for instance, this question is, do you like your wheelchair's color and appearance? This is a beautiful chair, but I doubt that little boy would like to have it. And that's not something a therapist can look at it and say. Or if you absolutely hate the color yellow, you would hate to have a yellow chair, but your best friend might love it. And that's something only a user will actually be able to tell us. A really good example of this is a story Mrs. Rispin tells from Kenya. There was a little boy that had a chair that was in pretty poor condition, so they replaced it. And everyone thought it was a wonderful new chair he'd gotten, and he hated it. And then they found out later on, talking to him, he couldn't reach the light switch. The new chair was short. And for a kid, not being able to reach the light switch, I mean, even for us, that's a pretty big deal. But it's not something a therapist would know just looking at him in his chair. So that's the purpose for this chair. That's why we need it, and why we're working on developing, or this questionnaire, why we're working on developing it. And it's still in the phases of development, but hopefully it will be able to be published and will be able to be used. So then, Mrs. Rispin.
Yeah, I ended up with this one. We used this to look at how well the chairs actually moved, and as quite a few people have said, going the wrong way here.
It's the one on the right.
There we go, sorry about that. We want to look at how well the chairs actually roll in the environment of use. And if you have each person just roll in their own chair, all you find out is everybody's different. It's like if I wanted to know about two different types of running shoes, and I gave one to your grandma and one to you, and then timed how fast you walked with those shoes, it wouldn't tell you much, okay? But if you have 30 people try each of the shoes and all of them hate the second pair, then you found out something. And this has that same basic framework where you're doing what's called a within subjects protocol. And they roll on a measured track and a rough surface, a smooth surface, a tight track, and a curved track. And you've kind of seen the people here doing that as well. This is for people that are self-propelling. We can't do that on campus. It would kill everybody's arms and hands, and we don't have the skill for it, okay? People who are manual wheelchair users are tough, strong people. And the question is, again, the same. You may have noticed some of these questions look like this, and some have a little computer look to them. That's because Jason here, hey Jason, is putting them all into a computer program, so we'll be able to do them on a tablet, and that'll save enormous amounts of time measuring and typing in comments. So thank you to Jason. We published 2 studies, and another one just was accepted. With this study, these ones, it has so much what they call face validity. It's obvious if it's slower and they hate it, that it's worse than the other one, that we published the first few without having actually done all the validation process, which you're not really supposed to do. But we did that this last, Lisa Ham did it with me, and then this paper just was accepted. That's why it doesn't have a issue number on it yet, because it just was accepted. This is the study we did with that one. These were the 4 types of wheelchairs. Up and down a curb on a rough surface, you can see there in Kenya. And there's Elisa, who wrote the paper with me. Here's our results. And as you can see, on the top one there, the little square one is the Hope Haven Kid Chair. And you can see it struggled compared to the Free Wheelchair Mission Chair. And then on curb, we did 4 types. And again, the Hope Haven Kid Chair is consistently lower. And so we were able to feed back to Hope Haven, and they've actually come up with a new design. The one over there by Joel is a different design of a wheelchair, but partly in response to our studies. So it does need further testing at other locations. It's flexible enough you can set up tracks at any location, but we've only used it at that one location. So we've got to confirm that it can be used in other locations, and it has fed back usefully to wheelchair manufacturers. It can also influence the purchase and prescription of wheelchairs.
Now Natalie and I are going to talk a little bit more about the aspects of wheelchair and mobility protocols. So these are the protocols and the rules that we're actually abiding by now. So if you've seen us testing in the halls, this is what we're actually using. A little bit about the purpose of these protocols. We're doing it to collect data pertaining to pushers specifically. So in the past, like Ms. Rispin said, we've been doing studies on self-propelling individuals. However, in these low-resource settings, it's much more common to see people actually pushing the wheelchairs because it's much more difficult for some people to push themselves. And we're also doing it to compare wheelchairs in low-resource settings. So these protocols that we're abiding by are specifically designed to fit a low-resource setting. So the terrains that we use are very much like you would find in a third-world country. And then once we have collected all of our data, we're going to then send the feedback back to the wheelchair manufacturers so that we can then, or they can get some feedback on how their wheelchairs are doing, and that they can make edits to their wheelchairs and then redistribute them to people. And then we've also designed these protocols to improve testing methods. In the past years, we've had a lot of just different variables in the tests, and so we want to make sure that our tests are specific and standardized so that we have accurate data, and these protocols help us do that. A little bit about the current methodology that these protocols demonstrate is that, like I said, they're removing a lot of excess variables. So you can't have 2 people test the same wheelchair and compare them to each other, because what if one person has a different disability than another person? Well, that one person may say that the wheelchair is really bad, but another person may say that it's really good, and that may just be because of their background or their disability. So that doesn't give us a very good feedback of how the wheelchair is doing. So what we're doing is we're taking individuals and we're comparing them to himself or herself. And we're having individuals do 4 different wheelchairs, like we have up here, on 4 different terrains. And then once we've done those tests, we can see which ones the users didn't like and which ones the users did like. And that just helps us get an accurate reading on how the wheelchair is actually doing. And we're taking this data from both concrete and subjective sources. So concrete sources would be like how far they traveled, the distance that we measure, and then subjective would be more like the rating that they do and the comment that they write about the wheelchairs. So the terrains we're using are trying to be models of what is commonly found in low-resource settings, and another purpose of these protocols is trying to make it short enough to be reasonable, but including as many terrains as possible that are encountered. So what we use right now are 4, and that is starting with the rough terrain. You've probably heard it in the hallway because it's pretty loud. And it's the way it's made is using like low-cost materials, and it's made to be stored easily and built easily.
So another one is the tight terrain, which is just chairs that are set up, and it's like doing a figure 8 around chairs that are 1 meter apart and 1 meter from the wall, and that's trying to simulate like being in a house or in a place where it's tight. The curved terrain, which is a curve, and you go up and down this like wooden plank, and the smooth terrain, which is outside of University Physics 1. It's just a tiled floor.
So we wanted to take this time to actually thank a lot of you who have volunteered your time to help us out. And we've just been randomly selecting you guys just as our peers, and you've been doing about 4 hours of testing to help us. And that has really blessed us. I know Natalie and I are definitely thankful for it because we're getting the opportunity to do research on this, and we're actually going to travel to Kenya at the end of this semester. And so we're really looking forward to that, and this has given us a lot of experience in doing the research. We've had them sign consent forms, and we've had them just like, we're using the data and we're comparing them to himself or herself, like I was saying beforehand. And it's been really neat to see just how people will like certain chairs and people will not like other chairs, and a lot of times they're very similar.
So how we do this to collect the data is we use distance for 4 minutes. The participant will push the wheelchair for 4 minutes, and we measure their distance traveled, and it's like by counting laps around the cones. And we use a Borg scale, which is how a participant will like receive their own exertion, which can tell some good information about how they like the chair or not. And we use the same, it's this questionnaire again, the visual analog scale, which is rating it, and then the comments, which are very important because they tell more specific about what was wrong with the chair or right about the chair. And so now I'll hand it off to Bridey.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm sure as fascinating as all of this information is about questionnaires and reliability studies, you guys are probably mostly curious about these chairs that we have up here. First off, the W's that you see in there were made according to ISO standards, so those are like national standards that we had students build for us, which is really awesome, so we can give really valuable feedback. And some of them do have names, so feel free to ask in the question section what their names are, and I will answer. But I'm going to talk a little bit about the first 2 chairs. Motivation is a company that we work with. Motivation designed 2 of these chairs we have here, and I had the opportunity to email back and forth with some of the high-up people in that company, so that's really awesome. This is their vision and mission statement up top. They were founded by David Constantine and Simon Gu, who are actually students from the Royal Academy of Art, so that's kind of cool. And they won a wheelchair design competition and then started Motivation in Bangladesh. So now it's in the UK, but it has wheelchairs all over the world. Their design philosophy is that they design wheelchairs for developing nations specifically, so they're focused on these low resource settings, and they do individual wheelchair fittings as well as distributing wheelchairs. They also are involved in other kind of programs such as support and mentoring through peer group training. That's something where wheelchair users will help other wheelchair users adjust to a new chair. And so Motivation is a company that tries to address the overall well-being of wheelchair users, not just their mobility, but their overall health and confidence. So some of their wheelchairs, they manufacture sport, emergency, and everyday chairs. They manufacture chairs that are supposed to be tough, but low cost, easy to maintain, and adjustable. And they have a slogan that is, affordable does not have to be ugly. So I like that one. So the 2 chairs we have today are the rough terrain and the active folding, which Natalie will share a little bit more about.
So the rough terrain wheelchair, which is this first one here, you can see it has like a longer front part where the wheel comes out further, and it's the most famous that they designed, and it is really good on the rough terrain. We've noticed that in these tests that we've done, and it's been really good in past studies as well, and it was even better than the Whirlwind wheelchair. The other one we have by Motivation is this one called the Active Folding, and it's really easy to take apart and fold up really small, and that was actually in response to specific needs, like we were talking about Ibrahim, who had to transport his wheelchair, and that hadn't been done before, and so this company actually reached out to a specific need. And so it's really good for urban living, so because it can be transported.
now I'm going to talk a little bit about another company that we've had. So they've designed this wheelchair called the Bumblebee. But a little bit just about the company itself. On their website, they're very clear about these three specific mottos that they have to inspire, to create opportunities, and to build communities. So in inspiring people, they really want to recruit volunteers and missions organizations to come and help them distribute these wheelchairs. And then they also, when they're doing that, want to make sure that the wheelchairs that fit the specific needs of the user. So they're very into making sure that like the size of the wheelchair fits that person's size as well. And then after they've given people wheelchairs, they then build a community for them. So a lot of people with disabilities are outcasted from society because they're seen as different, and they just can't get around to like social gatherings, and that's really damaging to them and like their spiritual life. And so Hope Haven comes in and they give these people communities to really thrive in. And that's another thing about Hope Haven is that they have started this organization kind of as mission work, and that they are believers and that they want to see the love of Christ spread throughout the world, and that's really awesome to see. They began, like I said, on 2 mission trips actually to the Dominican Republic and Romania. They began around 1990, and they've gone to a lot of different countries like Haiti, Vietnam, and Guatemala. They have a big organization in Guatemala, and they're very apparent there. So these are the main wheelchairs that they have designed and are working with. The Hope Haven Kid Chair, the Bumblebee, which is what we have here, and the Honeybee. So Hope Haven has made a lot of impact with these chairs, and they've influenced a lot of people, but they do struggle with their wheelchairs. As some of you guys know, as you've been testing, and not a lot of you like the Bumblebee chair. And we're really grateful to come alongside of them and give them this opportunity for field tests so that they can then go and improve their chairs and really help people in other countries as well. The Bumblebee chair is made of construction-grade materials for durability. So it's very durable, and it's also very versatile and adjustable. So you can adjust the size of the wheelchair to the person's height, for instance. And then it also has quick-release rear wheels, and it has like pretty cool attachments. Like you can see here, this is called the Helper Bee, and you can actually like attach the wheelchair to the back of a bicycle, which I'm sure is really fun for the user. And Joel's going to talk about Rock the World.
Thank you, Kathryn. So the last chair that we'll be talking about today is the RTW, which is this one right here, Pinnacle of German Engineering. The RTW has 2 companies behind its production, the first being Hoagie. Hoagie is the manufacturers of the RTW. It was founded in 2005 by its designer, Gregor Horchek. Gregor Horchek is also the personal designer of this chair and the person I've been working with personally in order to get this chair through all of its trials. Hoagie has also been partnering with a lot of other international companies, one of which is the Rock Wheels company, and the Rock Wheels is the distributors of the RTW chair. Rock Wheels is a nonprofit organization based in Bozeman, Montana. They are involved in a lot of mission trips. They have distribution points in all places all over the world, including all the ones you see here, and a whole lot more. And one of the cool things about Rock Wheels is their manufacturing facilities. And their manufacturing facilities are based in a correction center in South Dakota, actually. So all the Rock Wheels chairs are put together in a correction facility, and they have a youth program, seen here, where the kids can actually assemble the chairs, and they can learn basic mechanical skills and hopefully get a job in the fields that they want to later on. They also have a similar program in their low resource settings in the previous mentioned slide, where the local population can help assemble some of those wheelchairs as well, and then they can have jobs at that facility to maintain the chairs, repair the chairs, assemble the chairs, etc. Finally, some of the high points of the Rock the World chair. It's completely foldable, just like the Motivation Active folding. It's designed by Gregor, as I said earlier, and it's currently in a prototype form. Gregor and I have been testing it, and we're going to basically see how it runs through our tests and hopefully make improvements to it as we continue forward. The Rock the World is also probably the more higher end chair we have right now. It's probably definitely the most expensive to produce in comparison to something like, say, the Bumblebee. It's not specifically designed for low resource areas so much as it's designed for rough terrain areas. So that's why it's more expensive, basically. I mentioned it's foldable. It has quick release back wheels. It has interchangeable front casters, ones that work better for smooth terrain and then ones that work also for rough terrain. It has adjustable center of weight points where you can take off the back wheels, adjust the center of gravity for the chair itself, put it back together in a few minutes and it'll be ready to roll, which helps for different people who have different centers of gravity as they're sitting on the chair, and also for different slopes. If you're going down, say, a big hill, and it helps to have your center of gravity farther back. And that concludes the main of our presentation. Thank you all for listening to all of us drone for an hour. If any of you would be interested in being in the Wheels team in future semesters, be it next fall, be it next spring, or any time in your graduating sequence, you can contact us at latu.edu/wheels. We also have a Facebook for all the social media junkies, and you can also contact our head instructor, Karen Rispin, latu.edu. Any questions?
replicating a rough terrain. Have you guys actually taken it out and like ridden it on the dirt and rocks and stuff? Or?
This year we're not doing that. We're not doing that here. All these chairs are also going to get tested in Kenya this summer. They're going over there for that self-propelled. The tests we're doing right now are more of lab tests compared to the field studies that we'll be doing later. And the rough terrain we're using was designed by the University of
The parameters of it are from the University of Pittsburgh. Dr. Kosasaki modified that parameter into this, and which is a rough surface simulating units, is what he called it. But that lets us do it indoors. We can keep doing it any day. And then if people ask us exactly how rough was it, this is describable. Obviously, we can't haul these units to Kenya, so we just use outdoors there, but it's not describable in the same way.
Whereas this lecture will say exactly. And it does give a pretty good simulation that there is a distinct difference between that and the smooth track and different chairs on that terrain. It's just a little noisy.
What are the names of the chairs?
Oh, the dummies?
Or the dummies?
Oh, the dummies.
Well, okay, this one is, I think this one's Freddie. So we have Freddie and then Dude on the other motivations, which is my name. And then Rock the World is Martha, right? Martha. And then did we ever name Hope Havens?
Satan.
Yeah, so we just thought, we gotta personalize these guys because, we push them around all day. So this is Freddie.
That shows the name of the chair. It shows that this is definitely not a double-blind study. There's no way you can push a chair and not know which one it is. And hopefully the difference, so now we've probably influenced everybody, but if you're a volunteer, we're almost done the run, so hopefully we haven't influenced someone's opinion ahead of time. But you do get an intuitive feeling that gives you sympathy for the people who may have a sort of chair overseas by being our volunteers here. So thank you very much to those of you who've done that. It is a time commitment, so appreciate that very much. I just wanted to say too, the Rock the World chair, Gregor Horacek was at the conference with us. John worked with him there, and he has a company called Hoagie, which does first world chairs. But this one is designed for lower resource areas, places like Romania and so on. But he's you know how a German engineer wants everything top quality? So his struggle between quality and affordability is more violent than most people.
How much does the cheapest chair cost in the set of work chairs we have?
As far as
that becomes a real complicated question. It depends where you made it and what year, and have you included the labor and the shipping and so on. Most of the chairs cost between $150 to about $300.
and kind of what Mr. Rispin was saying there, like the Bumblebee, the Hope Haven, if you go on their website, they actually have a manufacturing plant in Guatemala, and you can go on there and look, and even their Facebook page. A lot of times we'll actually have the people who are getting the chairs help put them together. So that obviously affects costs and everything else, and it's kind of nice to get something that you actually put effort into. So there is a lot of variability, and it's also shipping costs, so where is it going?
There's been I've noticed in this presentation, there's been a bit of a heavy emphasis on the durability and the lasting of these wheelchairs. As an engineering team, what have y'all found that would wear out quickly for the most on these chairs as they go out into the terrain?
What happened to that
I don't know.
graphic? I gave you the one.
Yeah, we had a chart about the results of past experiments. One of the big things was the casters and the foot plates in the front. They had a really low score with the durability test, and part of that we found was because if you have kids in classes and stuff, they end up getting out of the chairs, and if you don't have good legs, they've gotten really good at hopping out of the chair onto them. They kind of like hop out, land on the foot plates, and then go from there. So those are getting really worn down, and that was one of the modifications on the RTW, I think.
Yeah, well, the RTW responded to that, but that was the free wheelchair motion chair where they actually redesigned the footplate attachments in response to the study. Another big issue is the casters. The bearings go. They live through this world for, unless you put seed bearings in, they experience urine and sand, which tends not to do real well for bearings. And then UV light and the sunlight and stuff is hard on the rubber. So, and of course the cushions wear out more quickly than the rest of the chair. And we're actually just collaborating with a guy at University of Pittsburgh who's doing his doctorate in some sort of engineering, rehabilitation engineering. And he just asked for all our caster data for his PhD.
How many volunteers do you have actually pushing chairs here?
We had 3 per person.
So,
Plus a couple extra.
Yeah.
25 or so.
Yep.
When you do stats with, even in a repeated measures thing, you use about between 25 and 30 people. So if anybody knows additional volunteers, I think some of us might be looking to do that. So if you'd like to volunteer, contact anybody here. Yeah. And you can experience what it's like to push the chair.
I've looked at bicycles where you can adjust sort of the gears depending on the terrain. These wheelchairs also have that precision to help somebody if they are maybe going uphill, or to give them some kind of mechanical advantage since they are using their hands.
As far as I know, the only one that has that is the Rock the World. Has the ability to shift the center of gravity a little
But that's
bit.
not the mechanical.
But
when
that's
you're
not
asking about
mechanical.
gears and a mechanical advantage, there are, when you're really going to go a distance, it's better to be able to pedal with your arms. And those wheelchairs don't come indoors very easily, so you always have trade-offs. And some of them have gears, but that becomes problematic because the more pieces you get, the more likely things are to break. There are some other chairs who have made a mechanical advantage by putting a lever that can lengthen, so you're going like this to move forward with a ratchet, but again, that makes more pieces. And a group from MIT has made a chair like that, but people tend to not prefer to use it because most of their travel isn't a long distance, and so it becomes enough of a hassle. Quite a few people do use the bicycle pedal, hand pedal chairs to get somewhere, and then they have another chair there. That would be ideal, but of course, if you only have money for one chair or with resources, it's a bit of a random what you get, depending on what got donated. And that's one of the things that a committee I'm on with the International Society of Wheelchair Professionals is trying to address.
Do they offer different size wheels? Because if you've had a lot of uphill in a particular situation, bigger wheels give you more advantage. So that
if you look, these two chairs, I think I've got 26 of them. These ends have 24s.
do they give you options on the chairs? I guess what I'm asking.
It's a bit hard to do that because of how the chair's balanced. But the larger wheels do offer an advantage in velocity and a disadvantage in power. I mean, depending on where you put the pushroom matters too. How small or large the pushroom is.
Yeah, I don't think any of these have different size wheels. I know the round world actually does have different casters, but as far as the actual wheels, as far as mechanical advantage, they don't typically have interchangeable.
And since I did, Edward Hamilton worked with me and looked up the rolling resistance is proportional to the diameter of the wheels to the fourth power or something like that. So the caster is often the limiting factor in rolling on rough terrain, so a lot of people pop up into a wheelie to go on rough terrain as well. Or these large, this one, of course, is what is easier to go because it's got the bigger caster up front.
The wheelchairs that you guys have, were those donated by the companies, or did you have to get them yourselves? Because you're testing for them in a sense as well, so.
Yeah, they were all donated, I believe.
Yeah, sometimes we pay for the shipping, but in general, we don't. The ones in Kenya that go to Canada go directly from the company to Bethany Kids, and then it's sort of a win-win. The wheelchair manufacturers get the study, the kids at Joytown get the wheelchairs, and the students get to go to Africa and do a cool thing. So, but they'll also send them to us here. Actually, the motivation ones were difficult. They don't have a U.S. office, so we brought them back with us from Kenya. And I stubbed my toe on the box and tore it. I suffered for that wheelchair.
And also what you said, for the most part, these companies want these studies. This isn't something, most of these companies are nonprofit, or even if they're not, they want these chairs to work. So it's not us going and trying to find someone who's willing to let us study it. They want to know.
They're invested in it. And that's why my students get to talk to the top dogs of the company.
Okay, well, I think I'm time to run out for today. So let's thank our speakers. See you all after spring break on Friday night in Kate Building.
And welcome to come to lunch with us if you want.
Yes.
Yeah, here's some.
I was reading about cycle.
Is that yours?